If you don't believe in yourself to be able to do anything, then what motivation are you going to have for anything? I think that each subject should have its own 1 through 12 grade, separate from each subject.
You don't even learn about credit before you take out a student loan. You don't know shit about credit and you're taking out a student loan. I would have loved for a teacher to just be like, I don't care if you're poor right now. You don't have to be poor for the rest of your life.
You're allowed to have a dream that's a little bit bigger than the dream you had when you were growing up, than what your mother and father might have had.
Kids and teenagers are just supposed to be able to go to school and focus on that only, not anything that's going on outside of school. I think that's a real fucking tough task because most adults can't even do that.
When I looked at the food pyramid as a kid, I thought that when I grew up, I was just going to be eating bread all the time.
We're going to talk about, I think this is a fun subject. I think this is something that we can both get behind. And I think a lot of people might think about this from time to time as they've gotten older after they finished school. And it's what school has completely failed to teach us. Oh, Brandon, there's so many things I feel like that could be on this list, right? There's so many things that school has just and it's one of those things where if you're in high school right now, and you're like listening to this or something, you're not going to know because you're still in school. So you have no idea what school failed to tell you or to teach you. And in fact, it could change. Whatever you're learning now, 30 years from now, your things that school completely failed you could be a different list than what we have now. But I think one of the big ones is banking. Now, when I was in high school, I did have an elective class. It was not a requirement, but an elective, and it was accounting. And I thought it was kind of a fun class, but a lot of it was just learning how to fill out a checkbook. Crazily enough, you don't really have to do that anymore. Although, I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe that'll come around again. Probably not. Everything's so digital, and you can look that shit up. You really just don't know. But the crazy thing is I feel like that if people did do that, it would actually keep like banks in check because I always have this worry and I talk to people about this. I'm like, it's crazy when you order stuff online because in reality, that business could take one more penny from you. And if they did that to everybody all the time, they would be millions and millions of dollars richer. And most people wouldn't know it because now we're just trusting on going to our banking app or whatever, and it's saying how much we have, and I'm like, yep, that's fine. Especially if it's one penny, you're not really going to be like, you wouldn't even care. You're not even going to call your bank and be like, hey. Most people are just going to be like, whatever, it's a penny, I don't care. But I do think about that stuff. Do you ever think about that kind of stuff? Like that your bank is just stealing from you, even though, I mean, I don't know, just weird.
Yeah, I guess I'm just jaded by it. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's jaded. Just it's one of the necessary it's like one of the necessary evils that
Yeah,
we have in life.
take your money. Yeah.
Yeah. Squirrel it away. And now we're getting to the point where the US dollar is becoming kind of less and less in the world, so that's always a worry too. But yeah, banking was big for me. Even I would even say like just ethical things. I know that there's like an ethics class. Actually, I don't know if I had any ethics classes in high school. Now I know in college you could probably get into more like ethical dilemmas and things like that. Um, but I do believe ethics, like just morally what's good and bad, although that might be a case for religion in schools, and I don't really want to put that in people's heads. So that's just a few things I can think off the top of my head. What about you? What did school like completely fail to teach you?
Well, it failed to teach me. It somehow failed to teach me self confidence, which is like a really like a sense of
Oh
self
yeah,
worth,
that's huge.
self
Yeah.
confidence, and this is a really core. This is like one of the core pillars that you need that everything sort of builds off of. Because if you don't believe in yourself to be able to do anything, then what motivation are you going to have for anything? And I think it also fails to teach us, to show us what it's like to dream for something, but then to take that dream and then break it down into goals, and then to take those goals and then break them down into habits, and to scaffold your life into a system where you can achieve the things that you dream about. And it doesn't mean that you have to have a lofty dream. I understand that not everybody can be an astronaut, but people can be. You can a lot more. I mean, many people can run their own business. I believe that even more people can run their own business than what our current economy even has. I think that
Yeah.
we could live in a future where we have much of more of a micro business economy where a lot of people are basically just running their own thing. And
Now,
but
I did take a class where I did run the school store, which I thought was a
that's
really
cool.
nice it
Yeah.
it did help me with business. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to point that out that not all schools have school stores, but for Lee, I got lucky and was able to do that like
Yeah.
that.
I think another big one is that school tries to teach us what to learn, but it doesn't teach us how to learn very well. And the because
Too testing based. Everything's I don't know if it still is, but that's how it was when we were in school. And so I don't think they everything we're talking about, they don't give a shit because they're just trying to reach test limits so they can
yeah.
get the proper funding that they need.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not sure how I feel because I almost have the opposite interpretation where I think the school is too much work based and
Mm.
not like I
Well,
think
I feel like they're just getting you to the test. They're trying to get you to the test because everything is determined on what your testing is. If you're a school that tests low, you're going to get fucked on grants and all these other things. And or you might even get shut down if you keep having like low scores. Your teachers are probably getting paid less. There's just so I just feel like the scale is big when it comes to testing. Now I do agree with you that yeah, there's a lot of work and all of that, but I think their ultimate goal is just to try to get you to, score high
yeah.
on a test.
And I also think that school would be better if so everybody goes through grades. So you have 1 through 12,
Mhm.
and
In America. Well,
in
actually, I guess
America.
in probably in a lot of
So
different yeah.
so what we have is that each grade has different subjects in that grade. And I think that each subject should have its own 1 through 12 grade, separate from each subject. So
I
that
got
way
you.
I can be in second grade on history and I can be in sixth grade on math. I can be 11th grade in science.
So you almost don't I mean, you're still in grades, but you wouldn't be do you feel like, though, that would also make some of the people who are just on second grade everything while you're on second grade whatever, but then you're on sixth grade science at the same time as you're on second grade math or whatever it is, but then, like, the dude sitting next to you is on first grade math and second grade science. And I mean, I do like your idea, but I also feel like that was discourage some people, and they might get I don't know, unless you just don't tell anybody. But then your teachers have to be specialized in things, or are you saying that in elementary school we should have hours like we do in junior high and high school, where elementary was just all the same teacher, right, all day long?
Yeah.
Where maybe we should have different hours.
Yeah, it seems like for that system to make sense, we'd have to have hours.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't see a major problem with that. I think that if I had that concept, if that was a school that I went to, another thing is that school needs to be more flexible with the hours of operation at school. I think the school starts way too early.
Yeah.
And
They've haven't they done like multiple studies to say that it does start way too early and it's
yeah,
not good for it's not good for the child's brain. They're not ready to learn that early. And not to mention most of them don't even get a proper like breakfast. It's usually like Pop Tarts or something like we had talked about before.
yep. Yeah, I've seen those studies too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really horrible for all those reasons. But yeah, so I think that there should be a disconnected aspect of it because there were some things and some subjects that I would have excelled in quite a bit, but we're just like
Sex
flattening
ed.
everybody. We're flattening everybody into a burger, and because you want one bite of the burger to be a perfect cross section of all the ingredients, and that's not how everybody wants a burger. Some people want a lot of pickles. Some people want a lot of cheese.
Everything is bites and slices with you
Yeah,
when you break it down. But I love
yeah.
it. I love it.
You said such as I think that I would have been well when I was in grade school. I excelled almost at everything, probably everything except history. I would have excelled at everything much faster. Um, but as a side effect, I was not. I didn't ever do any work, so I always had failing grades. It was always those
Yeah.
teachers where they were like, "By all rights, we should hold you back, but I know you know the work, so I'm just going to push you forward." And that and it sucks to be a part of that. And I had the classic like ADD kid mind where I was like, I just can't, I just couldn't do the work. Like I was like incapable of having the executive function to focus on a worksheet for something that I already knew that wasn't interesting
Yeah.
to me. I know this. I'm like, I know how to do addition. I'm ready for the next thing. Show me math, or show me you know, subtraction or multiplication, division, whatever. If that's how math works, still, who knows? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, so yeah, so that's what I think. I think we need to divorce the idea of flattening everybody, because you're talking about the person who's in second grade with every single subject. But now imagine forcing everybody to be at that kid's level
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
all the
I know.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's rough.
that's not right. Wait, another thing you touched on this, but just yeah, budgeting. Budgeting is huge. It's like
Yeah.
how does money, how do finances work? How does investing
Right.
work?
Taxes. Like if they would have, I don't remember ever, even in my accounting class or any other electives that I took, that were available. I don't remember anything where they would like, teach you how to at least fill out what is it, the 1040 easy, or, or whatever it is, like at least fill that out. Like, even though that's not that difficult, it can be difficult at the beginning when you're filling things out. And so I don't remember them ever teaching you that, or at least like, and then maybe saying, hey, they change the tax codes every year. But I guess at our time, I mean, the internet was still kind of fresh, but you could find ways to give them resources and how to keep up with the tax codes and things like that. So yeah, I think that's another big thing. Under just how reading a pay stub. Like a lot of people don't even know how to read a pay stub. It's like little shit like that yeah, they could have benefit. People at work aren't going to teach you. They're just going to be like, "Here's your paycheck."
Yeah.
They're going to teach you like how to read that shit.
Yeah. Imagine a class that you could have had in school that school decided not to. They dropped that class. They're not teaching anybody it. But the knowledge in that class was useful in such a way to where if you didn't do that thing right, you risk going to jail or at least a bunch of fines, right? So that's
Yeah.
basically what taxes is. It's like this thing that we don't teach anybody, but if you don't do it right, now you're in trouble with the US
Right.
government.
Right. Yeah. And that's wild to me. It's really wild. And building and maintaining credit. Like you don't even learn about credit before you take out a student loan. You don't know shit about credit and you're taking out a student loan. And nobody's talking to you about what this does to your credit, if you don't, you're not able to pay it back or whatever. And that's another one of those things where where I get a little upset with people who are like, "Oh, no, they should pay it all back themselves." It's like, well, most of these people didn't even know, and these loans aren't like they're not friendly. They're usually, they know what they're doing, and so yeah, I think that building and maintaining credit would have been like. There's so
Yeah.
many different financial classes that they could have taught to help us out.
Yeah, credit's a really great example because people don't. I grew up in a family where credit was an afterthought, especially,
Yeah,
and you. I think that one of the problems is you don't like all the things that you think credit is useful for. You think it probably isn't going to apply to you anyway. I grew up in a in a enough of a poverty type of family where it was like, well, credit is useful for a house, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna ever have a house. Like,
right,
so it's like,
right,
what good is credit to me? So anybody who offers me credit is basically just free money at that point. Like, why not just run it up? Um,
right, right.
but
That's a young person with their first credit card. They're like,
yeah,
"Really? I can just spend this?" And yeah,
yeah. So school could do a good job of simulating the process of not just how to be responsible with your credit, but also show you the ways that responsible credit people who have responsibly handled their credit show you what kind of benefits you get from it. Like go through the simulations. Like what can you do now that your credit's good? Like what of your bills are lower? Like is your car insurance lower? Like that's kind of cool.
yeah,
Is your more like you got a house, even if it's a crappy, crummy house, you got a little starter house. I think most people can still build towards that dream. It's not easy, but you can maybe get a crappy little house somewhere. If you get that, you still have an interest rate that is decided majorly by your credit. It makes decided
yeah,
also by things like the Fed and rates that the government sets, but also it's like if you have bad credit, your interest rate could be way higher, or your down payment could be way higher. Your down payment might be $20,000 instead of it being
yeah. Those
$5,000.
buy here, pay here places with people have gotten screwed on cars, and people have gotten screwed on just like what like I'm referring to. I don't want to refer to the name of the business in our city, but it's like one of those places where you can buy like furniture or electronics and you paying on it per month. And so you end up, you like, I want a couch that's normally $300, $400, but overall I'm going to pay like 1,000 on it over the next year or something.
Yeah.
And I here's one thing that I would have loved for a teacher to tell me, because you were just talking about how credit was like an afterthought in your family when you were growing up, and that was kind of how my thought was too for pretty much all of my childhood. But I would have loved for a teacher to just be like, I don't care if you're poor right now. You don't have to be poor for the rest of your life. If a teacher would have said something like that to me, I think that would have rung like some light bulbs would have kind of lit up in me, and I would have been like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay," but because I think that that's when you're at your most impressionable is right around when you turn right around puberty and right after puberty, you're very impressionable, and that's when I think you should bring a lot of these practical life advice in. And yeah, so if they would have just said something like that, where, hey, if you're a poor person, you don't have to be poor. Like, there's things you can do. But I've never heard of a teacher saying that. I've never heard any of my teachers say anything like that. And I don't know. I mean, they might have been told not to say anything like that because that could single out people. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could lead to like bullying if like, whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it would the good that would come out of that would be far much better than the bad.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So school, I mean, like, there's sort of like this building block for self improvement that I've been thinking about, but and it's not necessarily completely original, but I think that if school could help kids get a sense of self worth, and there's a plenty of kids that don't have it because their home life just doesn't facilitate strong self
Yeah.
worth. So you believe that have just as much worth as the next person. Um, they teach you that besides your worth, that you have the ability. You're not just cut from a different cloth where like you're unable to like you like actually you as a person are going to grow up and you can do these things. You can be an entrepreneur. You could start a business. You could start a little artistic thing. You could be an artist, right? You could start or you could work for a company, but you could work up in the company and be somebody important who has impact, where you like the job that you have.
Yeah.
And then those two things, and the next thing is teach you how to have a sense of vision for yourself, how to set goals, and and thinking about all those things. But like you're allowed to have a dream that's a little bit bigger than the dream you had when you were growing up, than what your mother and
Yeah.
father might have had, right? And what they achieved.
Teaching you discipline in that style would be great. Like being able to discipline yourself in being able to set these goals and
Yep.
being able to actually try to achieve them.
Yep. And then yeah, and then the final piece, yeah, it goes on to the goals, but like the structure of what it's like to achieve a goal, which is like because I'm a firm believer that goals have to get broken down into daily habits that because I think that we all run around. I think our lives are mostly the product of our habits.
Yeah.
But because they're habits, we don't think about it. It's just the way we live our lives. We wake up, we do the thing we do something in the middle of the day, and at the end of the day, we go to bed. So I think that if you can go into that and you can like surgically implant a new habit, and then you focus on that every day for like 30 days. And now you don't have to think about that anymore, because that's the advantage of a habit, is don't have to think about it. You can fall back to the level of your habits when you're not thinking and you're on autopilot. And but when you can surgically, like figure out how to mess with your own habits, you can develop habits that are, like every day I do this thing for 5 minutes. And it's like, maybe I take a walk, right? Like taking a walk or working out could be a habit. And these habits set you on a path that look like it's a little bit different now, but when you extrapolate it, your life could be 180 degrees different, and you're facing a different direction doing something completely else.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Baby
um,
steps. You just don't know
baby
how far
steps.
you'll
Yeah.
get with baby steps.
Yeah. So schools should teach you baby step you know, uh,
Right.
habit goals and rules and things like that.
Haberdashery. People who go to work as an adult, and how many of those people cannot keep their home, like they get angry or upset and they're mad about something at work, and almost always it's because of something that's happening at home. And we're expected as adults to just be able to like go to work and deal and leave our home life at home and just deal with it afterwards. But so are kids. And that's crazy, man. Because
Yeah.
when you're a kid, it's even worse. Like your home life could be way worse. Like you could have abusive parents. Maybe you're in the foster system. It could be a bunch of different things. And it's crazy to me that it's like as a kid, like a lot of times when kids are acting up, it's just because they have something going on in their home life, yet they're the ones getting like suspended or whatever it is. And it doesn't seem like you're really trying to help them too much. They're just kind of like trying to discipline them more than anything. And so I think it's really fucking crazy that kids and teenagers are just supposed to be able to go to school and focus on that only, not anything that's going on outside of school. And I think that's a real fucking tough task because most adults can't even do that.
You know,
So it just
I
kind of
agree.
thought,
Here, I have
what
some.
about, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I have some. I have some. I have a list of interesting things that would be fun if school had taught it to us.
Okay.
That I
Give it
wanted to
to
read
me.
off here. Okay. So the first one is how to send an email without sounding passive aggressive.
Yeah.
You know, how to make a doctor actually
We
listen to
might have
you.
been a little too early for the email. Well, I mean, probably right on the cusp of it, but
Yep.
yeah. But go ahead. What was that second one?
How to make a doctor actually listen to you.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. How to tell if a guru is just a confident idiot. How to leave a group project without becoming the villain.
Yeah.
How about how to spot MLMs before your aunt recruits you?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's an important
Um,
one.
money what's that? Money market what is it? MLLM? MLM.
MLM, yeah. How to know when a job posting is a complete fantasy.
Mm.
How to argue online without becoming clinically insane. How to detect when someone learns psychology from TikTok.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one. How to maintain friendships after age 30.
I need
Yep.
that one.
And finally, how to tell if your hobby is joy or just escapism. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So those are some fun things
I
because
like I like all those. I
yeah,
I also would say, what about health insurance? Nobody teaches you how to read, like, how to figure out health insurance, and we had talked about this before. I have read all kinds of things when my mom was on Medicare, and I read these things, and she's like, "I don't know who to join. I don't know what, like, Medicare Part A, Medicare Part B." Dude, and I swear they make this stuff, like, complicated for a reason. But
yeah,
yeah, like stuff like that, yeah, I would have loved to known how to read that kind of stuff just to be prepared for it. But although I would say that the Medicare thing, if they're teaching you how to read Medicare stuff when you're 18, and by the time you're 65, you're probably going to forget anyways, or it's going to change so much. But
yeah,
that would be, yeah, and as you said before, how to get a doctor to I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but advocating for yourself basically,
yeah,
in front of a doctor, which can be hard because people have nerves, and we had talked about how there's this thing with, like, doctors and mechanics and police officers where they have, like, more power than you in certain situations because they have the knowledge and they have the job, and you're just kinda like and you're at their mercy. And so that kind of sucks.
yeah.
What about basic nutrition, like beyond the food pyramid, which nobody uses the food pyramid anymore, but like, you know,
The food
that's
pyramid.
even tough because I feel like they're changing that shit all the time, like what's good and what's not good.
Yeah, the food pyramid sucks, and it
Yeah,
was so like I when I looked at the food pyramid as a kid, I thought that when I grew up, I was just going to be eating bread all the time, mostly because that's what I remember seeing at the bottom, this like
right,
giant
right.
fat like trapezoid
That's the
where it was
first
like,
thing you thought of. The first thing I thought of it was like, is this in every pyramid in Egypt?
oh, yeah,
And I was like, because then I
and
wanted to go there. I was
you
like,
want to go
oh,
to
there's the different food
yeah,
rooms.
if I can get to the top, there's going to be fats and oils.
Yeah, I can get up
Yeah.
there, and, it'll be great.
Yeah, and
Um,
the thing is that it made you. I was kind of roughly. I remember this. I think people have said this is not true, but I remember as a kid sort of thinking that as you get to the top, that are supposed to have like less of the thing, right? Like the bigger the slice of the pyramid, the
yeah,
more of it you're supposed to have.
it was very confusing.
So
Yeah, and
like,
don't they just use the plate now? I think they use a plate now. The food pyramid hasn't even been around for, like, at least 50.
yeah,
I think they've had it out of the system for, like, 15, 20 years, but I still don't know. But like I said, there is that thing where every week I read a study, you know, 3 cups of coffee a day is good next week. 3.5 cups is good the next week. If you're drinking 3 cups of coffee, it's bad. next week, 3 cups of coffee will cure cancer. You're like, "Oh my gosh." You're just like, you just
Yeah.
don't know. And it's just back and forth like all the time. So there is that stuff that I don't even know how they can teach you. Like you just got to have like some kind of you have to make your own cognitive decision and be like, and it's all a crapshoot. I really do think a lot of that is a crapshoot.
Yeah. School could teach you how to take control of your nutrition in a way to where, like, are eggs good or bad? I mean, I think eggs are good. I think eggs are great. But there was a time where we were like, hey, eggs might be bad because maybe cholesterol.
Right.
But now it's like is sort of it's one of those pendulum things. But nutrition could say, well, whether they're good or bad, like here's how you might look at it. Here's how you might find the studies that have been done. And I think AI is here to stay. So I think nowadays you could use AI to figure out how to aggregate and prompt it for information on what exists out there as far as food science for
Yeah.
different things. And so you can get your information and figure out what works for you. I also think that people are different, so sometimes diets for one person isn't the same for
A
another.
lot more diseases, a lot more like celiacs I didn't really hear much about when I was younger.
Yeah,
Um, so there's different things where now you have to worry about this and that. And, if you got to go gluten free, you got to go gluten free. That sucks for you. I feel bad for you because a lot of good things are gluten. I don't mean good for you. Good tasting things are gluten. Maybe you're actually eating healthier. I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah,
I also think that there's like some basic nutrition things that apply to most people that don't really get taught very well, such as like I think like weight loss and weight gain. A lot of it
oh yeah.
comes down to I think calories in and calories out. I think that it's
Yeah.
like if you if you burn this many calories a day and you eat more than that, you gain weight, and if you eat less than that, you lose weight. There was a famous example of somebody who lived off of just Twinkies and they lost weight, and when they went and got their labs done at the end, their labs improved. And the improvement of the labs was not due to the nutritional value of the Twinkies, but it was probably due to the weight loss they experienced, which
Right.
maybe they
Right.
were slightly overweight and the weight loss helped bring certain markers. But it was an example where even just it's not about like, oh, you're eating Twinkies, now you're gonna get fat. It was like, well, the calories matter. There's a math equation there, and for most people, that math equation works. There's edge cases. There's like, metabolism, thyroid disorders or other kind of disorders you can have and things. But for the most part, it's a math equation, calories in, calories out. And it's like, well, how much are you eating? Like if you're gaining weight, count your calories and see like is it going over this amount? Like what are you burning each day? So there's
Yeah.
really basic things that we can teach people.
But I do, yeah, and like you said, I do think that like metabolism would come into play a little bit more with people. There are people, and that's usually DNA and stuff. I think we come from a family overall where metabolism is quite high. Like we have a fast moving metabolism. I don't think we have too many fatties in the family. I don't think we have any fatties in the family. But I'm just saying, like, I do think that there are like, there's probably DNA a little bit is involved too. But like you said, yeah, I totally agree. Calories in, calories, you have to know like what you're eating. And most people don't even pay attention to that. And I think, and also, but also what about self-love or just self-worth if you are a little bit bigger? Than somebody else. Like maybe teaching people that that's not wrong. Like that's not a bad thing. You know, d- um, I realize that we're going into a lot of stuff the school could have taught us, and I feel like we just by adding all these, we've made the school day way longer and the school year like all year long. But but also there are things that they probably could have like took out. I mean, honestly, I don't know if I'm going to get shredded for this, but I would argue with some things with gym. Well, like with gym class, like we don't need that much gym class. Like I mean, and I was a sports guy. I actually liked gym class until we got to like, you know, I didn't like any gymnastic things that we do, or I didn't mind running the mile, but then I started smoking in high school. So then I started minding running the mile a little bit more. But, I do think that like there are some things that you could take in school and be like, okay, we don't need this much of this. And maybe we add some of these more practical things.
Yeah.
And like home maintenance, right? Like that'd be big. Like, but I will say that like there are specialty things. Like in our city, there was TBA where you could go and you could learn like specialty things and more hands-on things, which I do think may not help you do home maintenance in the future, but it will help you become like at least better with your hands and more knowledgeable about maybe you would still have a step up of somebody who didn't take that class saying, okay, hey, my furnace is down or something's down and this is something you've had to deal with that a lot of people had to deal with.
Yeah.
You got to call a specialist and then once we like we were talking about cops and doctors and everybody else, you're kind of at their mercy and because
Yeah.
you don't really know enough and it's
And
crazy.
how hard, I mean, how hard would it really be for a class to teach you how to change a tire on your car?
Yeah, yeah, that would have been great, and maybe they did do that in a specialty type class, like, where if you were taking, like, a mechanics type class, but that like I said, that wasn't a mandatory either, that was all kind of elective in my school. I know there's different ones, so I don't know if people how it even works now. I graduated I'm gonna age myself a little bit here, but I graduated 25 years ago. In fact, next month or the month after, there's my 25-year, reunion, but I don't go to those things, but,
Yeah.
yeah, so, yeah, I'm sure a lot has changed since then.
Yeah, and I also think that there's quite a bit like I think that school should start to look a little bit more specialized towards the end than what it
Yeah,
is. I think
right.
that a lot of I don't know, what's the minimum level of algebra you think is needed for graduating high school?
I don't know what it is now, but I had to take they didn't actually go with algebra. What they did was what I remember was 4 credits. It was either 3 or 4 credits of math. So, it didn't really matter. You couldn't take the same class twice, but, like, it just didn't really matter as long as you took and got 4 credits in math, that's what it was, and I did end up going to I think my last math class that I took in high school was like algebra and trigonometry, I think is what it was. And
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of trigonometry.
I think that's too much. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think that you need I think that you need to get as far as decimals and fractions, and then everything after that should be optional for graduation.
Yeah. I do agree with you. However, there is a there I mean, I would still agree with you no matter what. But what I'm saying is I've met some people who didn't know how to divide. And that's early on, and maybe they don't get back to it enough. I don't know. Like I do feel like there's this thing in school where you learn a subject and they're like, "Yep, that's it," and then you might learn it in like third or fourth grade. I mean, we could talk about cursive writing all day
Yeah,
long, right? But and there's a lot of people that don't even have to do that anymore. Although I do think it's kind of a cool skill to have. But
yeah.
um,
I don't
yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
the
there's things
dividing
like that they just teach once, and then like years later, you're just supposed to remember it.
yeah, but I mean, like, what is really the repercussions of not knowing how to divide, though? Like, what is the actual like, if that person's my mechanic, I don't think I care if they can divide. I don't
No,
even
and I
think I
also think
care.
people learn math different ways. I was talking to my stepdad about this, and he was a carpenter for 30, 40 years, and a lot of people who didn't know shit about math in school are good construction workers, and they're doing math. They're just doing it in their own way, and they're learning it in their own way. The Pythagorean theorem is 100% needed in construction, So, that how to measure an angle and all that stuff. So that it's crazy, and so I think that I don't wanna say there's a lot of people that don't understand. I just think that math is one of those things where when you have a definitive answer for everything, there's just different ways to get to it. And I think as long as you get to it, it doesn't really fucking matter how you got there. And that's all that really matters,
Yeah,
you know?
there it is.
Yeah. Anything else? Like any other things you can think of that school completely failed us?
Um, yeah, well, I mean, I have a few more things that I wrote down earlier for myself to about school. We talked about most of these things. Um, addiction, talking about like how it exists in society, how it
No,
forms.
and what do they do? What's the closest they do? They bring I don't even know if they do dare anymore, but they bring dare in and during our time it was just say no. And how
Yeah,
well do you think just say no worked,
it didn't
Brandon?
work. It
About as
didn't
good
work.
as abstinence. It's like I keep hearing about how the birth rate is so low right now, and I'm like, you want birth rate to jump back up? Start teaching abstinence in school again.
Yep. Um, Modern technology, like we talk about algorithms and hijacking your attention span and things like that. Just a little bit of knowledge in that direction about what are these things influencing you? How are ads working nowadays? How is social media working and what effects those have? So that would be nice.
Yeah.
Uh, I know I made a joke about friends after 30, but I think a class on networking, social and professional relationships, that would be really great. Talking
How about
about
go
what's
ahead.
up?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, talking about grief, things like loneliness and how to deal with those things in a constructive way. Um, but what were you gonna say though?
I
I
was
want to
just going
hear.
to say, because it kind of encompassed a little bit of some of the things you're talking about. And I was actually going to say, what are some of the classes? And I know that I know your story is that I think at 16, you didn't do much of high school. You went back, got your GED, and then, and now you're doing great. You're a coder. You've got some, you make websites, you do great things, you strip on the weekends. And I think that, what about some classes, and maybe you wouldn't know this, but what about some classes that aren't they're elective that maybe should be required? Like I feel like or classes that maybe like you said, like there's some classes that you get to at the college level, which are more to like your purvey. Like they're more things that they're specialized. And like you were just saying, we should have those a little bit earlier on, not just college. And then I also think like what you were just talking about, and you were saying some things. I was like, well, why wasn't like a psychology class like required? Or I'm pretty sure a philosophical class wasn't required either. And yeah, I know that philosophy, you're learning about old philosophers and things like that, but I remember taking philosophy and I loved it. Like I feel like that if you want to talk about existence and getting to know yourself, philosophy would be good. And if you wanted to talk about things of being able to mature and be a better person, like psychology or something would be good. So I just wanted to say that, like, I do feel like there's some classes out there that were more elective for me. And like I said, this could be different now or even different then in different cities, that should have been required rather than just you could choose them.
Yeah, yeah, I think that you're right. I think you make a good point there. Um, Although like what I feel like is that the requirement part should be broader. Like one of these things is required. Because what I like to see is the people who are good, who have a proclivity towards one certain ability or skill, that they are free to chase it and go deeper. They don't have to go. They don't have to have a breadth of knowledge on everything that they don't care about.
Yeah.
We require a lower minimum for things like I said, like math. Let's get to decimals and fractions. Like let's learn all the basic ones: addition, subtraction, PEMDAS, order of operations, and
Yeah.
multiplication, and then we get into decimals and fractions because I think decimals and fractions are very useful. It really annoys me when somebody says, what was the famous, we've talked about it before, the quarter pounder. So they tried to do a
Oh,
third
they tried to, yeah, do a third pounder,
a
and
third
people
pounder.
thought that because the number 4 was higher than the number 3,
They thought it was
they
bigger.
thought
Yeah.
it was bigger. Yeah.
So that's why I kept fractions in there. I think fractions are
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Um,
They are crazy.
So, but yeah, let people go deep in on a subject. So if it is, if it's a psychology subject, but you really want to go deep, or if it's a science or one of, not general science, but one of the sciences, right? Earth, like geology or environmental science, or you're going, whatever it is, you're going deep on it. Um, and there's all these sciences, they have like the hard sciences and the soft sciences, but we have a ton of different sciences that you can go into with jobs all waiting out there for people. And then technology careers, like we could get people started in technology careers much earlier.
Yeah.
And, do you want to be a coder and websites, a social media manager? Are you working with AI? Pretty much everybody is at this point, but you could work more closely with it. You could even be one of the people that helps to develop it. Um, and yeah, we can get people. And so when they get off the train tracks of school, they're already halfway. They're already like basically college years into their career on a free school K through 12 school system.
And
Um,
by the way, I think that's how they do it in England. I'm pretty sure I've heard
is it?
some British people talk about how that is how they do it, and there are a lot of things that I do admire about how they do things there, and we don't implement them here because we wanna be different.
Yeah.
That's why. We
Although
wanna
I've
be
heard for some
separated.
reason they don't offer dentistry as part of their.
They do not. They're
Yeah.
not they're
I'm
not
not.
they're not part of that at
I
all.
don't know what that's about, but
I just know a lawyer is called a barrister, and other names. I think they have multiple
yeah.
names
Yeah.
for, oh, I forgot to give you a well, that's a okay, that's too much laughing.
Thank you very much. Tips up front.
You sound like you were like a one-man show at like an elevator in a famous hotel. You just did it. All right. Well, yeah. So I guess if anybody has any more things the school has fouled you specifically, or maybe some that we forgot to mention, comment below and let us know because we'd love to
Or
hear
maybe
from you.
school didn't fail you.
Yeah,
Maybe
tell us
you
if school
love it.
didn't fail you. Yeah, maybe you loved it so much. You were the one that we always teased because you were always the first to raise your hand. Brandon's not going to get this reference, but you were the Minkus of the class, which is a Boy Meets World reference. But yeah, just let us know. Let us know about all that stuff. All right. Well, anything else that you would like to add, Mister Branna Montana, who's secretly Briley Cyrus?
Have fun out there. Keep learning.
Have fun out there. It's great. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We hope you have a good week, and until next time, we'll see you.